had a panic attack. Yes. Can I stick it on there? Or do I stand there? Okay. How about going around that way? I mean, can't it turn around that way? I'm keeping the wire. I'm on that one. Yes. So is it better to sit down? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, good afternoon again, and thank you all for coming back for this session. I think we heard from Marion about the pilgrimage in particularly Catholic and Anglican pilgrimage to Glastonbury. And Marion referring particularly in one of the slides, I was looked at Catholic Britain, and referring to Goddess in particular. And I think now tell us a lot more about that. Kathy is, as many of us will know, notable and instrumental in setting up the Goddess here in Glasgow, and has written many books about Goddess and talks nationally and internationally. Delighted to have Kathy here. Thank you very much for coming. Talk to us about pilgrimage to Goddess.
Thank you, everyone. It's lovely to be here. I hope that you are going to enjoy this talk. For me, pilgrimage is about a relationship between the heart, the soul, the land, and the relationship between the body and the soul, and exploring that. So pilgrimage is often it's talked about like we'll go for a walk. We'll walk along here and we'll go along here and we'll do that and we'll go there. But really pilgrimage is about deepening your connection to the spirit of the land, to the spirituality that is there within you and a part of you, and is a fundamental way of opening yourself to your own consciousness and to the development of your consciousness in relationship to land, to the birds, to the animals, the trees, the plants, to the substance of the earth. Many years ago, I came to Glastonbury over 40 years ago. I have been living here ever since. And through that time, my relationship to the land here and to Goddess, specifically, who is the one who called me to come and be here, that has deepened and deepened through time. So when we say Goddess, this means Goddess as the fundamental source and mother of all, of everything. Now, I'm aware that probably in the last few talks, the relationship has been to the male forms of spirituality on the whole. And this is about a specific connection to the earth and to she, her, the female being who is the mother of everything, who is the source, who gives birth to everything. When I first came to Glastonbury, there was very little that was acknowledged about Goddess. that she existed. Everything here was in male terms. It was all he, him, and his. And power was held in the hands of he, him, and his. And since that time, one of my personal dedication and that of many other women and some men has been to bring Goddess alive again, because we have forgotten her. We have forgotten who she is. We are taught about the masculine, and we are not taught about Goddess. We are not taught about the divine as feminine, as mother. And yay! So they're all in agreement out there. Yay, yay, yay! So there is a procession, a pilgrimage taking place in this moment. And of course, Beltane is one of those seasons of the year when we acknowledge the fertility and the abundance of her nature. When we acknowledge, you could say, I put that on especially for you. So when we are looking for Goddess again, when we are trying to find her, because she was honored and worshipped and adored for hundreds of thousands of years before patriarchy arrived in the world, about 7,000 years ago. And so and all the threads to that time, when she was honored and adored, have been broken. So when we are trying to find her again, the ways that we find her are by looking at her nature, at her body in the landscape. We look at her as in the ways in which she shows herself to us through the cycles of her seasons and the seasons of her nature. So this is just to give you a kind of mini introduction to how you can find out more about her in your pilgrimage. I would say that in coming to Glastonbury, which is the gateway to the otherworldly paradise of the Isle of Avalon, which is home of Goddess, which is the place where Goddess dwells and where she has always dwelt and where she continues to dwell. So when you want to enter into that otherworldly paradise, the way in is through the land. All you really have to do here is go sit on a piece of land, and everything will unfold from that. You don't have to do courses, you don't have to do workshops, and I provide lots of them, but you don't actually have to do that. You just have to go on and be on the land and communicate with those spirits of the land that are there. When we first began to look for Goddess in the landscape, the first thing that we did, my partner Mike and I, we looked at a topographical map of the sacred isle. And what you can see here from this shape, if you look at the contour line, which is 15.2, which is a level above sea level, you can see the outline of a swan flying across the landscape from the northeast to the southwest. And this, when we first saw that, was a fundamental thing, because in goddess spirituality, goddesses are often associated, or they have epiphanies, which are related to sacred animals. And here, one of the goddesses that many people, or one of the first, the saints, Saint Bridget, is the Christianized form of an earlier goddess whose name is Bridget, and one of her sacred creatures is a white swan. So when we saw this shape in the landscape, it was a moment of epiphany. It was like, well, of course she's here, because she is here in the landscape. The other thing that we do is to notice how the face of the goddess changes through her nature, through the seasons of the year. And these seasons are related to the astronomical points of the year, the winter solstice, spring equinox, summer solstice, autumn equinox, and the cross-quarter fire festivals. Imbolc, Beltane, which is the season now, Lammas, and Samhain. And each of these faces, these 8 faces, shows us a different face of goddess. So in this season, you have the festival of the goddess as lover, because everything in her nature is fertile, abundant, fecund. All of nature is thriving. Everything in nature is springing forth. So we're just going to go through this cycle just to see how it manifests. So at Imbolc, the Swan Maiden herself comes into view. This is the white swan. This is a 3D topical map made by Samantha Bostock, who is an artist here, which shows that kind of outline of the swan in the landscape. And as swan, she is swan and she is maiden. So she is one of the forms of the maiden goddess is the white swan, and her season is Imbolc. She appears when the snow lies on the ground here. It doesn't often snow here, but occasionally it does, and it snows at Imbolc. Here is a view along the top left is the view along Wiriel Hill, showing the swan's neck in the landscape. This is taken at Imbolc, and also looking from the swan's neck along the rest of her body, showing how she is outlined in the frost at her season of Imbolc. This is an image of Bride's Mound. So Bride's Mound is named for Bridget, bride, Bride, and it is said that Saint Bridget came and stayed for a while here on Bride's Mound. And sometimes at this season of the year, the land around Bride's Mound is flooded. And once again, the mound arises to be seen as a small island. And this small island was said to be a place of pilgrimage of itself. On the left-hand side is the small stone that marks the position of St. Bride's Well. And magical things happened at Bride's Well. Also, as you can see, or maybe not quite see, on the water, there are lots of birds. So this was a land where there were lots of birds, lots of water life. And the people of earlier times, they lived with the birds and they lived with the migratory birds. The White Spring takes its name from the white water that flows out from beneath the Tor. This white water is honored as being the milk of the goddess, also the essence of the maiden's energy. It is white water. It's very clear and pure to drink, and it's very cold. As you can see, inside it has been decorated, and there's a pool there. You can bathe in the pool, and it's a really shocking experience, I can tell you. Although in one goddess conference, we managed to heat the water up in the pool. It's probably the one and only time it will ever happen, but we managed to heat the pool, and we bathed in a warm pool. It was fantastic. And this is the time of year at Imbolc when we decorate the goddess temple and all our goddess places using white. White symbolizing what? So there are 4 main colors of the goddess from ancient times, from Neolithic times, that are used in all kinds of decorations, which are white, red, black, and yellow. And these are primary colors in ancient goddess times. So we decorate our spaces at Imbolc in white, the colors of snow and of the innocence and purity of the maiden goddess. in the landscape, when you actually look at the contour map of the land, on the back of the swan rides this other figure. This is a figure of the crone. She is there at a higher contour level in the topography of the land. So many people, when they come to Glastonbury, describe themselves as having troubled and sometimes difficult experiences here, which some of you may have had yourselves. It's a place where psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, you can get lost, as if you are getting lost in the mists. And these are exemplified by the mists that are drawn in, come in over the sacred land. There's always the idea that in order to enter Avalon, you must go through the mists. You must move through the mists from the physical world into the otherworldly realms, into the spiritual realms. And mist often arises here from the land in the autumn and the springtime. And the actual emotional and mental experience here can be one of deep confusion. Yes. And the crone is instrumental in creating this confusion. She invites us. So the crone is the face of the goddess who draws us into letting go, into meeting our death, into understanding that there are always parts of us that we must let go of, that must die, that we must give away, so that we might be reborn. So this view of the landscape and of pilgrimage to a land is to open your consciousness and expand your understanding to what actually is going on here. Because sometimes the experiences are deep and painful, sorrowful, sad, distressing, and we don't know what to do. And this is a time to actually be with the crone, to allow yourself to be accompanied by her, for she will sit beside you, beside the yew trees, beside her, in her womb tomb of regeneration, of death, letting go, of coming to life again. Her color is black. The colors of death, also the colors of the composted earth. You know, all that dies and decays must go into the earth to be regenerated. This is decoration of the temple at Samhain. Samhain is at the end of October, October the 31st, November the 1st, that time of life, which is the end of the cycle of fertility, when the plants begin to die back into the earth, when all that is has grown and thrived through the year, lets go. And always in these times, or hopefully in these times, there will be a sign. One of the aspects of goddess spirituality is that as we open our hearts more strongly to goddess, she provides confirmation, affirmation for things, for animals, creatures, phenomena that appear within her nature around us. So the rainbow is one of those signs that appears at certain times. Birds, animals, creatures also appear to give us affirmation and confirmation that what we are perceiving and what we know is real. This is a more detailed view of the wheel of the year. This is the sacred wheel of the Lady of Avalon, whose name is Nolava, of the sacred land. So again, on this larger one, you can see there are 8 faces to the goddess. So we have just looked at the maiden and the crone. In the southeast and the southwest, we have Nolava, the lover, the virgin goddess of this season. And in the southwest is Great Mother Nolava. Within the same shapes of the land, within the same topography, you can see different forms. So what was the swan at Imbolc becomes the goddess as lover at Beltane. This is her season. She is here in the land. And in that form, as she lies upon the land, the Tor is her left breast. Chalice Hill is her womb. Her left leg is Wiriel Hill extended. Her right leg is tucked under. Her right breast is there if you look in the land. It's just not so prominent as her left breast. But as all women know, when we lie on our back, our breasts go round to the side. Yeah? And also her head is going back into the earth at through Stone Dam and where Gog and Magog are. Yeah? So she is present in the land. That means when you walk upon the land in any particular season, you are aware of what part of her body you are walking upon. And she's large, she's big, she's goddess in the land. This is her gentle belly at Beltane. That is Chalice Hill. This is her left breast, sticking up to touch the sky. So the Christians came along and put a church there and left a nipple. There was a time when there was an earthquake in the 1200s, when she went, "Get off my breast," and knocked the church down. But they built it of stronger stone. But even so, all that remains is a tower reinforced by concrete upon a soft and gentle feminine breast. Chalice Well rises, the water rises from beneath Chalice Hill. It is the red blood water of menstruation. Also in the gardens you have the yoni tree. A yoni tree is one that is joined, that grows together at the bottom and at the top. So if you have eyes to see, and when you walk about, you can see these things, you can experience them. There was a time before the fence was built when you could walk through that tree to the White Spring, from the White Spring through to the Red Spring. And we all have a dream that the road will go one day and we will be in one beautiful garden of White Spring, Red Spring, flowing together. At Beltane, the hawthorn blossoms, the forget-me-nots and the bluebells bloom, and swans mate with their lifelong partners, the swans of Imbolc. So everything is a cycle moving. It is all about patterns and forms and cycles and spirals, because in her nature, everything is always moving. Nothing is static. It's always in flow. Next to the abbot's kitchen in the abbey grounds, many years ago, in 1990, I wrote a small book which was called The Goddess in Glastonbury, which was my first little venture into writing about goddess. And up in there, I named that stone as one on which a bleeding woman could sit and let her blood drip. And if you look at that stone now, it is red in the cavity. So, and quite often when I would drive along the road, I would see a woman sitting there. So things do not have to continue from the far past. We can, in the present, create meaningful places and experiences. We have that capacity. And this is the goddess temple at Beltane. The colors are red. We jump the fire. We decorate with flowers and beauty, and we are very fortunate that in the Goddess Temple we have many artists, many amazing artists and creative people have contributed to the contents of the Goddess Temple. At the same time, and with just slightly differently, so that in order to become a mother, you have to be a lover. You can't be a mother without being a lover. Yeah. Same in the landscape. And this is the wheel of the year that we work with is a solar year. So quite often in goddess spirituality, the goddess is said to be a triple goddess, maiden, mother, crone. But because we work with the sun wheel, she is a fourfold. She has four faces: the maiden, the lover, the mother, and the crone. And the mother is the one who gives birth to everything, who gives birth to everything that happens in this town and in this landscape. She is quite difficult to photograph because she is a giantess. This is from Butley Ridge, looking out to her, and she lies in and on the land. So her body is sinking down. You can see her left breast, Chalice Hill as her belly. Her hips are going down into the earth. She comes up, but Wirial Hill is her left knee rising up. Her head is going down into the earth on the right. She's huge. And in the folklore and the stories of old, the goddesses who created the land, who are the land, are enormous. They're not little things. They're not human size. They are giants. And she can be seen, viewed from the tall, over the belly of Chalice Hill. You can see how she gives birth to the town. So everything that occurs here, all the creativity, all the creation, all the people, all the experiences are her creation. And when we come here, we engage with her creation. We become a part of it. We pass through it, either transitorily, to have our lives transformed by a moment in time upon one of her sacred places, but we stay for longer and we engage with what is going on here. This is the Goddess Temple decorated for Lammas. It's decorated in gold and in the colors of wheat. And also it's a time when we give thanks for the first harvest. The first harvest is the harvest at Lammas, which is around August the 1st. Thank you. So we've been looking at the cross quarters, and now we look at the quarters. The quarters are the north, the east, the south, and the west. Many years ago, when I was looking at the Wheel of Goddess, I was working with existing stories, legends, what I was told was true. And I wanted to create a wheel that invoked the powers of Goddess. And I was taking what I knew about the seasons and few names of the goddesses who were known, and tried to fit them onto the wheel. And the traditional pagan wheel then was the Wiccan wheel. And the information that I had would not fit. So I could have given up and surrendered, but I didn't. And so the wheel was changed. So Nolava of air is in the north. She is the breath. She is Nolava of winter, of stillness, of hibernation. In the top left, you can't quite see, but she is a goddess lying on the earth made of snow and ice. It's the time of just breath, stillness, waiting, hibernation. It's also here where if you stand on top of Windmill Hill and you look towards the tor, on the winter solstice, you can see the sun rise, roll up the side of the tor. And it's a phenomenon. So the mound that's on the top of Windmill Hill is a human-created viewing place to watch the sun rise, which, as in many of the ancient and Neolithic peoples, the winter solstice was the important time of the year. It was the time of the ancestors, and it's here in our land. It's also the time of the murmurations, great murmurations of birds. In the springtime, we have, at equinox, spring equinox, we honor Nolava of fire, of springtime, Nolava of creativity and energy, of courage, of enthusiasm, of the creativity of the mind. It's the time when the flowers begin to burst forth. And we have Easter's eggs rather than Easter eggs. So Easter is all based on when the equinox is, all of that you know. So many, like many Christian traditions, are based originally in the traditions, much earlier traditions. This is the temple decorated for Easter with the Lady of Avalon painting there by Caroline Lear. And it's the time when the daffodils come out. Nolava of water, she who is the Lady of the lake that once surrounded the sacred Isle of Avalon. Once we were an island surrounded by water that's gradually sunk. The water is still there, about 10 feet below the flat summer lands, the water is there. If you go out onto the land, jump on the land, it moves. You can feel it beneath your feet moving. This is Clyce Hole, where some of the water flows, and at the opposite times of the year, this is when it turns the same part of the River Brue, Bridie's River, turns into a roiling, boiling cauldron of change and transformation. Are you ready? Painting of Domnu of the Waters by Caroline Progan. Domnu as she's painted on the Wheel of the Year by Wendy Andrews. I'm aware I'm going fast, but time is going by. And Nolava of Earth, she of the autumn, of sunsets, of grounding, of continuing, of substance, of earth. On the slopes of the Tor is a great three-dimensional labyrinth. I first walked the labyrinth with Geoffrey Ashe, the great Arthurian scholar who lived here for many years. And he wrote a little book called The Glastonbury Tor Maze. And for many, many years, I would walk the labyrinth several times a year because it is a great, powerful and transforming experience. It takes about 4 hours to walk into the center and about 3 hours to walk out. Better to do it on 2 different days, and better not to stay in the center because it's when you get into the center, it is a place of transformation. So be cautious. Cautious. It's a time when we honor the trees. I know he's going to talk about trees a bit later on, the sacred trees of Avalon. There are many. And they have much to tell us, and they've lived much longer than we have. The time we honor Banvar, who is also the Mother of Earth. And we have many images, we have many statues that are representations of the goddess of the earth. And these have all come here. Artists have been drawn here. People have been drawn here to offer their understanding. So an image is only really, it's something that evokes the sense of the sacred within you. It's not a definition. It's not saying this is her. It's saying, what does that image evoke in your heart? How do you open your heart to her? How do you feel her? when you see those images. And that's been the way of Goddess spirituality throughout time, that up until 5000 BCE, 99% of the images that have been found that remain are female images. That's a big percentage. And we continue that tradition of creating images of her. The Lady of Avalon has 9 daughters. They're known as the 9 Morgans, the most famous of whom is Morgan Le Fay. That many people know of her. But as Geoffrey of Monmouth wrote, she was one of 9 sisters, 9 Morgans, who are the transforming powers within the land, within the weather, who appear in the forms of trees and of birds and of creatures. And they transform negative emotion and obstacles on the spiritual path. Talking of pilgrimage, so the first Goddess Conference was created by myself and Tina Redpath in 1996. And this photograph at the bottom was the first group of people who came to participate. And from that very first year, we walked every year in a procession around the town, circumambulating the edges of the town, bringing Goddess alive, because this is an ancient Goddess tradition. We used to carry the Goddess, usually a wicker Goddess made by one of the artists. We would carry her in a cart because it's traditional that she processes in a cart. And we did that until the cart was stolen. So this was a procession one year. We were singing the land alive. We went to walk everywhere in the land singing. And we walked all over her body. And this was the part where we were going to Bride's Mound. And that is Sister Mary from Kildare in Ireland, who brought the flame, Bridie's flame from Ireland. And that flame was joined with 5 other flames, to create the flame of Avalon, which was the first sacred flame that has been held since, this is 2004, has been held continuously since 2004. And other flames have evolved from that first flame that we created in the conference. As you can see, we like to dress up. We like color. We like energy. You can see an image of the goddess there, and the banners, which are banners that come from an American woman called Lydia Rule, who is an artist, who created goddess images, who made banners of goddesses from all over the world. And this is part of one of the processions. And this is a procession of the crone. I particularly like her face. I like her dreadlocks. Yeah, she's great. In 2002, we opened the Glastonbury Goddess Temple upstairs in the courtyard of the Glastonbury Experience. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year, for the whole year. So do come to any of the events and things that we have. In 2007, we bought the Goddess Hall as a goddess ceremonial and teaching space because the Goddess Temple was too full for the number of people who wanted to come in. So, and the painting on the front is, again, by Jonathan Minshaw, who's now done quite a lot of paintings around the town. And this painting is of a priestess arriving on the shores of Avalon. It's inside the hall. In 2013, 7 years ago today, we opened Goddess Temple Gifts, which is in the courtyard of the Glastonbury Experience. And Sue Quatermass is the inspirational manager of this shop, wanting to encourage artists, craftspeople to create more work and to bring that into being, so that people can take things away and have them in their home to remind them of their pilgrimage to Glastonbury and Avalon. And at the spring equinox in 2016, we opened Goddess House, which is on Magdalen Street, as a goddess healing and educational center. And on this weekend, there is a wonderful exhibition there of Sheila Nagig. Sheila Nagig, goddess of the gateways of love, sexuality, and death. Do go and have a look. This is inside the house. Each of the rooms is decorated in different colors and is dedicated to a different face of goddess. It's a very beautiful space. You can just go in and have a look, or you can go and receive healings and treatments. These are some of the many wonderful people who, in 2020, when we had lockdown and everything going on, helped to sustain us and develop all that we are doing through the pandemic. Yeah, amazing, wonderful people. This is the lady in her sacred land, another painting by Jonathan Minshall, where the land, she and the land are one, that there's no separation between her and her landscape. And it's how we find her. One of the things about her, she has a violet emanation. Her skin is violet. She radiates violet light through her body and her land. Really. And finally, these are some of the books that I have written, which are all about Glastonbury and Avalon and Goddess, finding Goddess. When you are looking, when you want to know more, there is In the Nature of Avalon, which has pilgrimages through the landscape, Priestess of Avalon, how we have become. Priestesses of Goddess, Priestess of Avalon, Ancient British Goddess, about Goddess in the whole of Bridget's Isles, Soul and Shadow, Creating Motherworld, The Nine Morgans, In the Mysterium of the Lady of Avalon, and Motherworld. So there is so much that we don't know, there is so much to learn. I thank you for your attention and for listening.
Thank you very much. It's very, very interesting to learn more about Goddess. One of the Avalon. How many questions?
Silence them all. The wounds. It's quite a small one. It's a small one. There is one in the back of Goddess House. Yeah, in the garden at the back. Yeah, yeah.
So much, so much. There's something that you still feel like burning desires.
One of my passions is Motherworld, and Motherworld is a society that places mothers in the center of society, and the values of mothering, which are love, care, support for each other, and for the earth. And so my passion is to bring Motherworld alive in the world, to change completely the way that we do everything. That's my passion. Yeah, yeah. I didn't actually understand the question. They are here. What role do they play? They are transforming powers. So they appear in the forms of trees and of birds. So when you walk in the landscape, you can connect to them through a tree. and through a bird or a creature or an animal who may talk to you. You can invite them in, you can journey to meet them. So they're both in the mythical world and they're in the present world. And sometimes they are embodied by human women. But it's not that there are 9 women who are the 9 Morgans. There are 9 Morgans who sometimes appear in the form of women. Okay? Okay.
Once again, thank you very, very much.